The lonely rancher's quiet nights weren't so quiet. They said the ranch lay silent after sunset. No lights stirred in its windows, no laughter spilled from its doors. Not a single sound broke the stillness until sunrise chased away the dark. But anyone who dared pass by swore they heard whispers in the dark. Coyotes howled, wind brushed through the dry grass, yet somehow there was always something more. And so the old ranch stood cloaked in mystery, feared and avoided by all who knew its secrets. Secrets held close by the man who lived there. A man some called the Shadow Rider, others just the Ghost. He wore his loneliness like a shroud, a heavy dark garment that hid what little remained of his soul. He was tall and lean, weathered like an old saddle, his face etched deep with lines that spoke not only of age, but of sorrow. Eyes the color of storm clouds watched from beneath the wide brim of his hat. In them one could glimpse the vast emptiness within, a landscape just as desolate as the ranch itself. Many had tried to unravel the enigma of the ghost, to peer into the depths of his being and understand the torment that brewed within. But he was as impenetrable as the starless nights that mirrored his own darkness. The world kept its distance from the Shadow Rider, leaving him to his solitude, or so it seemed. For one night, when the moon was a sliver in the inky sky and the wind sang a mournful tune, a lone traveler stumbled upon the ranch. She was weary, her horse's flanks heaving, her face pale in the dim lantern light that flickered like a dying ember. Fear tugged at her heart, whispering tales of the ranch's eerie reputation, urging her to flee. Yet an inexplicable force held her captive, rooted to the spot as if by magic. Her name was Sarah, a wanderer with dreams in her eyes and stories in her soul. She had roamed far and wide, seeking adventure beyond the borders of her ordinary life. But none of her journeys had ever been like this one. As Sarah stood there frozen, the door creaked open, and the ghost emerged. His silhouette dark against the faint light spilling from within. Time seemed to stop, the only sound her pounding heart. Then the ghost spoke, his voice a gravelly echo in the stillness. "Lost child of the setting sun," he said, his gaze boring into hers. "What brings you to these forsaken parts?" His words hung in the air like the scent of sagebrush, carrying with them the weight of ages. Sarah shook off her stupor, startled by his uncanny ability to pierce the veil of her thoughts. She managed a shaky smile, attempting to brush off her unease. "I am merely seeking shelter for the night, kind sir. My horse is weary, and I cannot ride in this darkness." The ghost studied her for a long moment, his face an inscrutable mask in the gloom. Finally, he gestured with a tilt of his head, indicating the interior of the house. "Come in, child of the setting sun. You're safe here for now." Relief washed over Sarah, mingled with a lingering sense of foreboding. As she stepped across the threshold, she felt as if she were stepping into a tomb. The interior was dimly lit, the air heavy and stale, as if no human foot had disturbed the dust in years. An unsettling quiet hung in the air, broken only by the ticking of an unseen clock. "Make yourself comfortable," the ghost said, his voice echoing strangely in the cavernous space. "I will see to your horse." Sarah nodded, but her gaze couldn't help but wander. Trophies of a hard man adorned the walls, each one whispering tales of battles long past. Skulls of vanquished foes stared back, their empty sockets seeming to bore into her very soul. Then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The floorboards groaned ominously underfoot, as if the house itself were alive and breathing. Shadows danced in the flickering lamplight, taking on shapes of their own. A sudden crash echoed through the house, followed by the distinct sound of footsteps. Sarah froze, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The ghost turned, his face grim. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Whatever you hear, do not come out." Before Sarah could reply, he was gone, disappearing into the labyrinth of rooms. She was alone in the vast, shadowy house, surrounded by the ghosts of the past. Time ticked by relentlessly. Each creak of the floorboards, each sigh of the wind through the cracks, sent shivers down her spine. Fear threatened to consume her, but curiosity burned brighter. Driven by an insatiable need to understand, Sarah found herself drawn to a closed door at the end of the hallway. Hesitantly, she reached out, her fingers trembling, and knocked. A voice, raspy with disuse, answered, "Who's there?" "It's me," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "May I come in?" Silence met her query, heavy and expectant. Then the door swung open, revealing a room bathed in a soft, inviting glow. But it was what Sarah saw next that made her gasp. The room was filled with children's toys, scattered about as if left in the middle of a game. Dolls with vacant eyes stared sightlessly ahead, rocking horses poised mid-gallop, and a small wooden train chugged around a makeshift track. In the corner, a cradle gently swayed, its rhythm slow and hypnotic. Sarah stepped inside, mesmerized, and approached the cradle. As she reached out to touch it, a photo tumbled from beneath the blanket. It showed a young couple cradling a baby, their faces radiant with love and joy. Sarah's heart ached with a pang of sympathy. Suddenly, a choked sob echoed through the room, tearing her from her reverie. Sarah whirled around to find the ghost standing by the door, his shoulders shaking. He quickly composed himself, wiping away a stray tear. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I did not mean to disturb you." Sarah, her heart filled with empathy, crossed the room to stand beside him. "Why do you keep these things here?" she asked softly, gesturing to the toys. The ghost sighed, his gaze distant. "They belonged to my son," he murmured. "Thomas." The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken grief. Sarah placed a comforting hand on the ghost's arm, her touch lingering. He flinched slightly at first, then leaned into her touch. "I lost him," he whispered, the pain evident in his voice. "With him I lost my wife, my happiness, my soul." Sarah's compassion grew. She understood now why the ghost was so tormented, so lost in his grief. She had journeyed far and wide, but never had she encountered a sadness as profound as this, a loneliness as suffocating as his. Together, they stood in silence, united by their shared sorrow. Two kindred spirits bound by the invisible threads of empathy and understanding. The night deepened, the shadows lengthening, and still they stood there, lost in their thoughts. When Sarah finally awoke, the first rays of sunlight streamed through the window, painting the room in hues of gold and crimson. She stretched, her muscles stiff from the cramped position she had slept in. As she rose, she noticed the ghost watching her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "It's morning," she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. "I should be going." The ghost nodded, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Yes, the sun has risen," he murmured. "You must leave now." Sarah hesitated. Despite the lingering unease, she felt a pang of reluctance. She had journeyed into the darkest depths of the ghost's soul and emerged with a newfound respect and understanding. She had found not a monster as the legends claimed, but a man consumed by grief, a father robbed of his child. And as she turned to leave, she saw not a ghost, but a man, weathered and worn, yet with a spark of humanity still flickering within his eyes. The ghost watched her go, his face etched with sorrow. As Sarah rode away, she cast one last glance back at the ranch. In the distance, a rocking chair creaked on the porch, swaying gently in the morning breeze. And Sarah knew that the ghost would sit there day after day, forever searching for the lost child he loved so dearly.